am compelled by Schlock.
Well, happy Schlock's Patrick's Day. I am Darby O'Gill, and joining me is the Little People, also known as Chris Anonymous. How's it going, Chris?
Fine time to get to. How you doing there, Darby?
I'm doing all right. It sounds like our motorcyclist is back.
Oh,
so
I'm glad.
If any of you remember from the Highway to Hell show, we had like a visitor zipping around all over. Gonna have to
feels like part of the show to me. I want him every
well,
time.
I mean, maybe we should bring him on.
Yeah, who is the mysterious motorcyclist and what's he doing? How's he doing?
Looking for his pot of gold, maybe.
Yeah.
It's not St. Patrick's Day just yet. It's the Monday prior, if you're watching these in any sort of chronological order. But I believe this movie was picked for St. Patrick's Day. Is that correct? The movie, of course, we're talking about is Taffin, starring Pierce Brosnan.
Taffy, yeah, that one.
So
it was picked for St. Patrick's Day. Yeah.
So you got to answer a big question for me.
Okay.
Why did you pick this movie? You started talking about it last time, but we were running out of time, so I want to get that back in.
Let me get the thing out of my throat. I had a bit of Irish Spring stuck in my throat. I'd been swearing.
Had some Irish in you?
Yeah, I had some
drinking,
I've been swearing a lot,
potatoes.
so I put some Irish Spring in my mouth to, and yeah, so it was caught in my throat. Anyways, well, I wanted to pick something for St. Patrick's Day because we're trying. Anytime we're around any kind of holiday, we're trying to pick something holiday appropriate, I guess. So we did some Christmas movies. We did a Valentine's Day kind of movie. I'm sure we're missing a lot of holidays, but
yeah.
So
President's Day, I think we missed that one.
And Leprechaun wasn't on Tubi anymore. That would have been an obvious pick. And the other one,
shame on you, Tubi.
Right?
Shame.
Right? I mean, seriously, you lose it right before St. Patrick's Day. Come on. And so there were a couple Leprechaun ones, but none of them looked that like appealing right now. So then I tried Banshees, and there weren't really any. There was a couple Banshee films, but they all looked just kind of like just wasn't in the mood. So then I'm like, okay, what about just an Irish film? And then I saw this one, and it was Pierce Brosnan, and it appeared to be an action film. So I watched the trailer, and just Pierce Brosnan in an Irish setting, doing some actiony stuff. I'm like, what? Why not?
Was it created by like an Irish director? I assume it was filmed in Ireland.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the director's Irish. I think most of the cast is Irish. I think the novels are set in Ireland. I think for the most part, and I could be totally off base, that it's an Irish production or a British production or Irish. I don't know.
Well, I did notice, you see, I watch everything with closed captions on because I'm an old man. But I noticed that one of the options for closed captioning was either English or Gaelic. So
that's awesome.
I didn't watch it in Gaelic because I don't know. But I don't know. But I would have been even more lost than I already was. But so
yeah, the director's name is Francis McGahey. So that's Irish. That's got to be Irish.
Okay. All righty. Well, so into some facts about this movie. It was made in 1988. That is 1 year after, I believe, Remington Steele, a TV show that Pierce Brosnan was in. I've never seen it. Apparently, it was very James Bondy because I think that's what sort of qualified him to play James Bond in some way, like being that kind of action hero. It is about 7 years prior to his role as James Bond in GoldenEye. Interestingly enough, I think that like he was going to play James Bond before this movie, but he got like snubbed for the role, and so he took Taffin as kind of a party
Rebound?
gift. Yeah, Rebound, the old Taffin Rebound.
The old Taffin Rebound.
So the movie, I don't know how much it cost to make, but it looks like it only made about $160,000, which probably isn't very good for what they spent on it.
Right, probably not.
But who knows? Maybe it's cheap to film in Ireland. So, and that's all I have for an intro. You've told us about the director. We know the old Pierce is in it. What else do you have for us in the Web of Schlock?
Well, the female lead, Alison Doody, she had a small role in the James Bond film A View to Kill. And then after this, she had a small role in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And then she was in this with Taffin. So she acted with 3 different James Bonds. It's kind of interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, the director hadn't done a whole lot else. The only other 2 things, the writer, David Ambrose, he wrote the final countdown. Did you ever see that with the
I haven't. I played the song a lot in pep band in high school.
I don't know if they're related or not. Probably not. Maybe.
If that song's not in that movie, I will burn it all down. Yeah.
But it's the typical giant ship goes back in time right before Pearl Harbor attack, and
that old chestnut.
Yeah, he also wrote Amityville 3D.
Okay.
Yep. So he's got a little schlock in him. And the only other thing is the composer. One of the composers on this film was Hans Zimmer.
Oh, really? I missed that.
Whoa. I mean,
the angry tugboat.
Yeah. Whoa. Yeah. I mean, what, Lion King, Batman Begins, Dark Knight, almost every major movie. I mean, huge guy.
Yeah.
He was one of 2 composers. The other was Stanley Myers, I think. Well, it's hard to read my own writing. He did Deer Hunter and The Witches, and I didn't know if like one of them had taken over for the other, if they did it together, but it looks like they did several movies together. So I don't know if Hans Zimmer was like kind of apprenticing under him or what that is, but that's very interesting.
Stanley was like the workhorse, and old Hans, he was just riding the coattails and getting the fame.
Could we put in a little brawl? No, we're not doing that. You wait.
Not putting in a little bra.
One day I'm going to put it in. Okay.
You'll see. I'll show you.
I'll
show you all.
So that was interesting. Also, strange, the score didn't do a whole lot for me. Like, it wasn't bad or anything, but like when I saw that, I was like, oh man, okay. And it was okay. And that's really all we got. That's our show. So
let's get into the good, the bad, and the schlock. We'll say which is which for each. And before we get into it, make sure you like, comment, subscribe wherever you are. Let us know that you're around. And also be forewarned, we will spoil this movie and potentially any other movie. For instance, I didn't know that the song Final Countdown is not in the movie Final Countdown.
I don't remember.
Or it might be.
Yeah.
Who knows? So for me, the good, I don't really have a whole lot of good. We were kind of talking before the show. It's not because I didn't think there weren't good things in this movie, but I think this movie left kind of a weird impression on us that we can talk about some more. But so you had mentioned that this was a novel, I think a series of novels.
There are 3, I believe. Yeah.
And what I had down for my good is that they're like potentially interesting stories and characters like within this movie. But I feel like it just didn't really deliver. However, I was interested in the world that they were in, and knowing that it was a book makes a lot more sense to like, oh, you could spend more time in this world with these characters and know more about them. And overall, I thought those characters were acted well. There wasn't any parts where I was like, well, maybe a couple, but I thought it was overall acted, and I liked the community of people that they were in, and I think they were trying to make some charming characters, and I think that overall, I found them charming.
Yeah.
So,
I don't have a lot to add to the good. I agree with all your good. There were some really great shots. I don't know if it was the cinematographer or if it was the director or both. There were some also just really average shots. So it's kind of like, is it good? Is it bad? So I'm trying to think of things that are just good. I Taffin. I like the character Taffin. But I don't know if I like Taffin or if I just like watching Pierce Brosnan, because I could watch Pierce Brosnan about anything.
I know you could, man. I think that I like Pierce Brosnan playing Taffin, because we'll kind of get into it. I'm not so sure about these people in this world. Like we'll get into it. But.
Yeah. The other thing that I want to bring up, and this is in good, bad, and schlock, so I'll just hint at it here, and we'll deep dive later. It's the moral crisis of Taffin. And here, since we have the shot pulled up, that's toward the end of the movie. He's crossing a bridge. He's doing a kind of point to no return. Like his character is going through this moral gray area and coming out the other side, and you don't know what that other side is, but you don't see that a lot in action movies, and I think they did it kind of well and kind of bad and kind of schlocky. So again, it's hard to separate. So that's all I have just for specifically good.
Yeah, that's what, and that's what I meant. There are some very interesting themes in there, like the seminary background, the moral quandaries that are sort of set up. So there is life in this movie. There's for sure.
Meat. Yeah.
So the bad
might be haggard. Yeah.
What do you have for bad?
Okay. For bad, again, product of budget, product of time. It feels a little made for TV-ish. But
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Here's why made for TV-ish, and for those two reasons, but it's for another reason. And here's my problem. It has the stakes in it are Saturday morning stakes. And they're two different kinds. There's the minor and the major Saturday morning stakes. And I'm just making all this stuff up. So you're not going to find any of this anywhere. These are my
I love to eat steaks.
Right? So the first Saturday morning stake is what's at stake is a playing field for soccer, for football for these kids.
Right.
Like
oh no, the town soccer field's in danger. Right. Gee, Andy.
And then Taffin, go beat him up. Right. And then it switches to the major Saturday morning stakes, where it's like this evil corporation with chemicals. I'm like, you watched a cartoon. You watched two different cartoons, and one was like, we got to save the soccer field. And the other's like, there's an evil chemical corporation and it's going to destroy your entire town. And those were the two stakes. That was what was at stake in the movie. And it was just so underwhelming and so like hysterically overwhelming. And there was no like normal stakes or anywhere that met in the middle. It was just, and it felt very made for TV and kind of Saturday morning cartoon.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think that saying that it was made for TV, like that really hits the nail on the head in a way. Like there's like, it feels like there's good places for commercial breaks, or at the very least it's episodic. Cause that was one of my big things with it, is that I felt like the pacing in it was just terrible. We don't get into that main conflict of the chemical plant until like 40 minutes in, like nearly halfway through the movie. The father, the ex-priest or whatever he was, we don't even see him until the midpoint.
And then there's that like midpoint slowdown where they just talk and talk and talk. And it's interesting, but it's also just this like, I have slow pace. And here's why. And your idea of episodic and TV, there are too many acts. This is not a 3-act movie.
No.
And between each act, we have to see him and hawing and going through a whole nother moral conundrum. It's basically like we get to this point, and then Pierce Brosnan and Taffin has another moral conundrum of like, should he go deeper into the rabbit hole? And we cut to a commercial, and then we come back, and it's a whole new act. Like, that's why it feels, it's just so bizarre how many, like, this is like a 5-act play. Like, it's, but not in a good way, in a bizarre way. Like, well, that's over. We got the fill back. Now what? Well, but it's a chemical pellet. But I can't do anything about that. They got it all legal. Yeah, but it's gonna poison us. All right.
Yeah, he keeps getting sucked in, even though like they said, things were done legally. I don't know. It just very odd stakes.
Yeah, it's basically, at the end of Act 1, when you have that internal debate with the guy of like, should I do this? Should I do this? Shouldn't I? He has that about every 10 or 15 minutes.
Right. He never gets like the full resolve that he should, like at the midway point or a little after, where he's like, okay, I'm going full bore. I'm committed to this now. Yeah. It just doesn't follow like a structure that we're used to. One of my bads was that I feel like they had a lot of miscalculations in tone. This movie was kind of trying to have everything, like the real serious drama, the action, like the coolness. Like the reason I started thinking this was the very end, where he like meets her at the bus stop after Charlotte, I think her name, thinks he's dead, and he like pushes her, and he pushes her again. She turns around, and he has his sunglasses on. He's like, "Be cool, Charlotte. Be cool." Yeah. I'm like, what movie is this? Like, what is he, like a cool guy?
Yeah, he's a cool. I mean, that's how he got her in the first place. He goes into a bar and he forces a guy to crush a glass in his own hands, and he leaves with the waitress, even though she was like mid-shift. That's how cool he is, man.
That's my last big problem is their relationship. Like I did not care for the relationship. I thought it seemed rather sleazy to me. Like he crushes the glass, they go home and they have sex, and then the next day she's like tagging along with them, and he's like, "Hey, this gal's with me, give her a fish." And
that's how it works.
They're involved now.
Yeah.
I mean, I was totally things I don't know about Ireland.
It felt like, okay, here's the other thing, and let's use this to kind of dovetail into this schlock. It felt like a bunch of Irish producers got together and watched a bunch of American 80s action movies and said, no, we want to do that, but set it here in Ireland. Yeah. And that's what they did. And so it has all these weird tropes, like the whole strip club scene is just bizarre. Just so many weird things.
Let's start with schlock. I have a picture of the strip club. I think it's called Annabelle's, and they start the scene, and you can accept the premise that like these people are in a strip club, and then they start doing things outside of the strip club. It's like noon. What is this place? Like, why? Like, granted. Like I'm sure that there are strip clubs that operate during the day. However, why is like the whole town there? Is this like a town get together?
Yeah, it's like the block party, but it's at a strip club.
And that's my biggest question for this movie. And I have written down in big letters. How big do you think this town is?
Well, I think there are multiple towns that are all kind of near each other.
Okay.
But I might be confused.
I saw on IMDb that in the book, the town is Ballymoran. I didn't look that up on a map to see if it's real or anything or what their population was. But to me, it seemed like, okay, so it's near a city, but it has like this kind of small town
village
vibe to it. Yeah. Like they're at the strip club. The entire town is there. Not only is like the entire town there, like the thugs that came in to terrorize the town are there. So it seems like there's only maybe one place to go for entertainment in this place. And with that idea, like that opens up like a whole dish of problems, I feel like, for this movie that like I kept going through like the entire time. Like, do people like know who Taffin is? Like when he's walking down the street, do people know who he is?
I think so.
If he comes into their bar ready for money, they know who he is?
I think so, yeah. I think he's kind of like a little Robin Hood-y kind of guy set in this small Irish town. Yeah, I totally think they know who he is or have heard of him if they don't recognize him. He's kind of like the anti-bully who goes around like Robin Hood-y and like, you know,
he's a bit of a bully, I'd say.
And so, you know, he gets his 20% cut from whatever money he retrieves. He helps people out. He's definitely,
it seems like he despises the people that he helps.
Well, he despises that one person that he helps, but I think that's because that guy was being duplicitous, where it's like, I want your help, but I don't want to see you in my shop because then people would know. And see, I think that has to do with part of his struggle, Taffin's identity struggle and his moral conundrum of like, he's partially a product of this village that likes his help, but doesn't necessarily approve of it on the surface. And so that's what I really found interesting about the movie is we have a shot of the broken window in the mirror. So there are several points, like when he breaks the glass, and then we cut to this and we have broken glass, and then we have him in the mirror thinking about her, him, everything. And it's interesting that you have several of these shots, and then you have that shot of the bridge where, you know, the broken window theory, right? Of like crime and so he feels like a bad that the community is willing to have for the greater good. And he's trying to find out where he fits in that community because he feels that he is good. And they keep pushing him, and he's like, you know where this is going to lead, and you're going to turn on me, and I'm telling you, you're going to do this. And then they say, well, we want you to go farther anyways. And then they go really far, and we can get into that with pouring gasoline on people and accusing people of assault.
Yeah, yikes.
And it gets kind of messed up in that third act or sixth act or whichever it is. And then, of course, they turn on him. And then he has the scene where he's on the bridge contemplating what he's doing. And then he goes the farthest he's ever been. And I mean, spoiler alert, kills a couple guys. Not that they didn't have it coming in movie logic,
right?
You know, shooting first and all that. But it's interesting that he's saying, you want me to be a monster to protect you from monsters. But when I totally become a monster, you're going to turn on me.
Right.
And that's exactly what they do. And it's really interesting to bring those moral ideas up in an action movie, which you don't see a lot. You just see a lot of like, well, nope, I'm going to go kill all these people and rescue this one person.
And that's all very interesting stuff. But I don't think that like, I think that it's giving the movie too much credit because like that, I think we're getting there from like trying to draw some more things out of it than like what we're actually like presented.
We might be.
Like we were talking about the symbolism, right? Like I don't know, that might be giving the movie too much credit. I mean, because I want to say before we run out of time, my favorite line in the entire movie is when the main thug is roughing up the father. He pushes him up against the wall and he says to him, I'm gonna make you shit good and hard. And I was like, whoa, don't threaten me with a good time. Like, what, this movie just goes in and out tonally of like this really smart, like moral conundrum. And then just this weird stuff.
Well, yeah, if we pull up the line that evidently became a meme for a while, I missed out on it, but evidently it was a thing. But my favorite line is then maybe you shouldn't be living here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was like ran on a radio show or something, and it got popular. But to me, that's like, yeah, that's such a weird, like bombastic response in this relationship that they have. And to me, that says like, oh, they have a poor relationship. Maybe Taffin like really isn't a very good guy because, right, he seems to be uninterested in this woman's help. They had a sleazy hookup there. She just like all of a sudden started living there. He's a debt collector that goes and beats up people. Now, as a person who is and has been in debt myself, I will tell you that when people don't pay their debts, it's usually not because they like have the money just laying around. They go out of their way to show that like this, like one of the guys has like a brand new car or whatever. But I mean, if he's in a small community where people are like going into debt and he goes and starts cracking skulls and he's willing to like show people like how to be tough and pour gasoline on folks, I don't know if he's a good guy. Like,
well, and I don't think he knows if he's a good guy. And that's why you have him rescuing a kid's soccer field. You know, it's very right. Save the caddy, right? It's very like, you could make this really dark and he could be this really bad dude.
True.
And I think that's what he wrestles with. And I mean, I probably am reading into some of the symbolism. I'm just pausing and making up myself. But there is the dialogue of you know, I can't come back for this. You know, this is what this is going to do. And they're like, well, we don't want you to murder anyone. He's like, well, you're going to turn on me. So, I mean, a lot of that is there. I don't think it comes out perfectly, but I mean, a lot of it's in the dialogue. I do want to touch on one thing that's schlocky that we haven't brought up yet, and that's Mr. Henderson. The exploding outhouse, the cranky old guy who just shoots anyone with a shotgun. And he doesn't
like, what
care.
A wacky scene.
Yeah, what a wacky scene, and like what a bizarre character. And like when he's talking to the bad guy on the city council, is like, I really don't care who I sell to. And like, no, you trust me, you'll get more money if you wait. Yeah. And so he's like, okay. And then he's shooting at people with a shotgun. Like, does he just do that all the time? Doesn't matter what they come on his property
That's
for?
just who he is.
Yeah, like, don't go
like
old man.
It would have been nice. And so this is a problem with like the pacing and maybe the book portion of it is that like it would have been nice to see him come in later in the movie, right? It would have been nice to see the foil, the father character come in at the beginning of the movie, right? Like they introduce us to all these characters and they just kind of like come and go and you never see them again or you haven't seen them before.
Yeah. Yeah, when they're arguing, when they're having their moral religious argument about what actions he should take in his loft, it's just bizarre because it feels like it's the climax of some dramatic episode of TV. But it's in the middle of the movie, and we've really never seen this character before, and we get all this backstory dump and like.
Right, exactly.
And it's also weird that we have the girlfriend secretly listening.
Yeah.
That was just super weird. And then she runs back out and then she's like, well, I heard him the other day. And I'm like, that doesn't.
Well, it's because she doesn't know anything about him because they have this really tenuous relationship that started off on this weird sleazy hookup. I'm sticking with it.
Nope. It's a perfectly cromulent way for people to meet in the 80s. It felt like how they met in like every action movie in the 80s. Like,
yeah,
you just walk into a bar and you do something cool and the chick's just gonna jump on your arm.
Put your sunglasses on
and you walk out cool.
Yeah.
And then someone tries and roughs you up at the door and you hit them without even looking back.
So I wanted to get into the police really quick. We're running out of time, but I just want to say like the police action / inaction really boggled me in this movie. There's this scene where like we see that the police in this small town are indeed active and willing to work against the thugs. But then later we have like the bathroom pee scene where like they're just moments before the thugs are in the bar. They the bar owners say, hey, we'll call the police if you don't act straight. And so then they just go follow them into the bathroom, punch them, pee on their leg. And how come no one's like, I'm going to call the police. This dude just pissed on me. Like,
yeah, I mean,
anyway,
it feels like all of them are kind of acting outside of the law, because the good guys still want to take down something they went through all the legal channels to build, right? So the bad guys are obviously bad, but then the good guys are also for the greater good of the town and the safety of people, acting also outside of the law. So it would make sense that none of them wanted to get the police involved very much.
Well, maybe I didn't get it. It didn't hit for me, but I feel like I've seen this type of story before, and it has worked better.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
But anyway, unless you have anything else to say, I think that we're ready to wrap up.
Yeah, no, that's about it.
Yeah, so we, Chris and I are actually getting together this week instead of being so far apart, and we don't have a movie for you yet, but we are going to get together, scroll through Tubi, where we find all of our movies because they're free for you to watch, and we're going to find something that we can watch together, and then we will let you know what that movie is. Does that sound cromulent as well?
Fantabulous.
All right. I am Darby Ellis Lewis Wilson. This is Chris Anonymous. We have been compelled by Schlock, and we will see you next week.
Schlock. Schlock, schlock, schlock.
Bye.
Wait. Schlocky, schlock, schlock. Schlock. Schlock, schlocky, schlock.